You hear that? That rain coming down hard on the roof? Most folks find that sound soothing, helps em sleep. But me, I hear that drumming and my chest gets tight. I can't help it. I look at the ground and I wonder how much water that dirt can hold before it lets go. You boys look at a puddle and you step over it. You don't know what water looks like when it's black, angry, and coming for you in a tunnel no wider than a coffin. You think you've seen a storm? Sit down. Let me take you back to the spring of '74. When I was 24, I learned that the only thing scarier than the fire is the flood. It's good you boys came by today. The damp gets into my joints something fierce these days. My knees feel like there's crushed gravel grinding in em every time I stand up. That's the coal miner's pension right there. You don't get gold watches in this line of work. You get a bad back and a cough that wakes the neighbors. I see you looking at my hands. You're wondering why I'm rubbing this scar here on my thumb. It throbs when it rains. It's a reminder. The mountain always leaves a mark, son. Always. Sometimes it's on your skin, sometimes it's in your head. You fellas are working the surface mostly, driving those big haul trucks. Air conditioning, radios, suspension seats. You got it soft. I ain't saying you don't work hard, don't get me wrong. But you haven't smelled the deep earth. You haven't been down so far that you forget what the sun looks like. Let me tell you about a mine called Black Hollow No. 4. It was a wet mine, a nasty mine. The roof was tender, which meant it liked to flake off and drop rocks the size of washboards on your head if you weren't looking. But the coal was thick. 6-foot seam, pure bituminous black gold. That was back in 1974. When I was 24, I was strong as an ox and just as dumb. I thought I was bulletproof. I had a wife at home, Sarah, and a little baby girl just starting to walk. I was working double shifts because I wanted to buy a Ford truck. It was my big dream. Blue Ford truck. I was working the hoot owl shift. That's the night shift, midnight to 8. My partner was a giant of a man we called Tiny Miller. It's an old joke, I know, calling a big man tiny, but this fellow was 6'4" and wide as a doorframe. He had hands like shovels and a laugh that echoed down the drift mouth like thunder. Tiny and I were on the continuous miner section. We were way back in, maybe 3 miles from the portal. It takes a long time to travel 3 miles underground, boys. You're riding in a Mantrapa little electric cart on rails, bumping along in the dark, watching the ribs of the coal pass by like black walls closing in. We were working Section 7 that night. Now, everyone knew Section 7 was wet. We were digging under an old creek bed on the surface. We knew it, the foreman knew it, the company knew it. But the coal was there, so we were there. When we got to the face that's the solid wall of coal we were cutting, it was already dripping. Not just a little sweat on the rocks, I mean steady drips, plink, plink, plink. It's like a leaky faucet in a cheap motel. The floor was muddy, sucking at our boots every time we took a step. I remember Tiny looking up at the roof. He took his helmet off, wiped the sweat and the grime from his forehead, and put it back on. He said to me, "Silas, I don't like the smell of this air. It smells like swamp water." I just laughed at him. I said, "Tiny, you're just smelling your own boots. Let's get this coal cut so we can go home, see." I was 24. I was arrogant. I didn't listen to the mountain. We fired up the continuous miner. It's a massive machine, a rotating drum with steel teeth that chews the coal right out of the wall. It's loud, deafening. When that machine is running, you can't hear yourself think, let alone hear a warning. The dust was thick, even with the water sprays going. I was running the shuttle car, a low buggy that catches the coal from the miner and drives it to the belt line. Back and forth. Back and forth. Load up. Drive to the belt. Dump it. Drive back. It was about 3 a.m., the graveyard hour. It's that time of night when your body wants to shut down, but you keep moving on coffee and grit. I was coming back from the belt line, empty. I had my headlights on, cutting through the haze. That's when I saw Tiny. He wasn't running the machine. He was standing in the middle of the tunnel, waving his cap lamp frantically. I stopped the buggy and jumped out. The continuous miner was off. The silence was heavy, but it wasn't silent. It was a sound, a low rumble. Not like a roof fall that's a sharp crack and a boom. This was a growl. A vibration in the floor that traveled up through my boots and rattled my teeth. "What is it?" I yelled. Tiny pointed at the face, the wall we had just cut. "Look at the bottom, Silas. Look at the bottom." I shined my light. Water wasn't dripping anymore. It was shooting out. Jets of dirty water, pressurized, spraying out of the cracks in the coal face like fire hoses, and the sound, it was getting louder. It sounded like a freight train coming down the tunnel. Then the wall gave way. It didn't crumble. It burst. It was like someone punched a hole in the bottom of a lake. A wall of black water, mud, and debris exploded into the section. "Run," Tiny screamed. "Get to the high ground. Run." We didn't have time to think. We didn't have time to grab our lunch pails or our jackets. We just turned and ran. The water hit the back of my legs like a sledgehammer. It wasn't cold. It was freezing. It took the breath right out of me. Within seconds, it was up to my knees. Thick, oily sludge. It was moving so fast it knocked me sideways into the rib. I scrambled up, gasping. My light flickered. Tiny. I screamed, "Move, kid, move." I felt his big hand grab the back of my belt and heave me forward. We were running up the entry, trying to get away from the face, but the water was faster. It was rising terrifyingly fast. Knees, waist, chest. The power centered the big electrical box that powered the section shorted out behind us. Kaboom! A blue flash lit up the cavern for a split second, and then total darkness. The main power was gone. The ventilation fans stopped. The hum of the mine died. The only light we had was the beams from our cap lamps, cutting through the steam and the dust, and the noise of the water. Rushing, churning, smashing timber props against the walls. We made it to a crosscut, a tunnel connecting to main entries. The ground sloped upward slightly here. We scrambled up a pile of loose rock, gasping for air. We huddled there, watching the black water swirl below us. It was rising inch by inch. It was chasing us up the slope. "We can't stay here," Tiny wheezed. He was holding his arm. I think he'd smashed it against the machine when the water hit. If that water hits the roof, we drown like rats in a trap. "We have to get to the main haulage road," I said, my voice shaking. "It's higher up. The pumps will be there." "No. The haulage road is 300 yards that way." Tiny pointed into the dark. "And the dip is between us and them." The dip. A low spot in the mine floor. To get to safety, we had to go down through the low spot before we could go up to the main road. The dip was surely flooded to the roof by now. We were trapped. Behind us, the water was pouring in. Ahead of us, a flooded tunnel. I looked at Tiny. He looked at me. His face was gray in the harsh light of my lamp. He looked old, tired. "I can't swim, Silas," he whispered. I stared at him. "What do you mean you can't swim?" "Never learned," he said, staring at the rising sludge. "Big man like me, ... I sink like a stone." The water was lapping at our boots now. We had maybe 5 minutes before our little island was gone. "I'm not leaving you," I said. "We go together. I'll pull you. You hold on to my belt." "No," he shook his head. "You go. Got Sarah. You got the baby. I'm just an old bachelor. I'll climb up into the ventilation shaft and wait. Maybe the water won't reach that high." He was lying. We both knew it. The ventilation shaft was a dead end. If the water rose, the air pocket would compress, and he'd suffocate or drown. "I am not leaving you." I grabbed his shirt. It was 24, full of adrenaline and stubbornness. "We are going through the dip. Take a deep breath when I say go. Hold on to my belt. Do not let go." The water touched my waist again. "Now, Tiny, now." Plunged into the black water. Have you ever tried to swim in heavy work boots, denim coveralls, and a leather tool belt, dragging a 250-pound man? In pitch darkness? The water was thick with mud. It clogged my nose and ears. I kicked with everything I had. My cap lamp was underwater, casting a weird murky green glow that barely lit anything. I felt Tiny's grip on my belt. It was tight. I was desperate. We went down into the dip. The roof disappeared. We were fully submerged. The pressure built in my ears. My lungs were burning. I was clawing at the water, trying to find the rib, the wall, anything to guide me. I kicked. My chest felt like it was going to explode. The panic started to set in. The reptile part of my brain screamed, "Breathe! Breathe!" But I knew if I opened my mouth, I'd swallow death. I felt Tiny's grip loosen. No. I reached back blindly and grabbed his wrist. I pulled. I kicked harder, my legs screaming. Suddenly my hand hit something hard above me. Rock, the roof. We were still in the dip. We were going to die here. The slope changed. The floor came up. Scrambled, clawing at the mud. My head broke the surface. I gasped, sucking in air that tasted like oil and sulfur. I coughed, retching water. I yanked on Tiny's arm. I need Tiny. He broke the surface a second later, sputtering, thrashing wild. I dragged him up onto the muddy bank of the haulage road. We collapsed there, lying in the mud, chests heaving, coughing up half the mountain. We lay there in the dark for what felt like hours. My light had shorted out in the water. Tiny's was dim, barely a yellow ember. But we were alive. We were on the high side of the water. We started walking. It was a long walk, 3 miles to the surface. We passed rats running the same way we were. When the rats run, you follow them. Remember that. About a mile from the drift mouth, we saw lights, the rescue team. I've never seen a more beautiful sight than those bobbing lights coming toward us. When they saw us, they didn't cheer. They just ran to us, wrapped blankets around our shoulders, and got us on a man trip. They got us out just as the sun was coming up over the ridge. I walked out of that dark hole and the sunlight hit my eyes. It blinded me. It hurt. But it was the sweetest pain I ever felt. I went home to Sarah that morning covered in black mud, smelling like a swamp. I hugged her so hard she thought I was cracking her ribs. I held my baby girl and I just cried. I cried like a child. Tiny ... Tiny quit the mines that day, never went back underground. He opened a little hardware store over in Hazard, lived to be 82. Every Christmas, he'd send me a card. It always said the same thing. Thanks for the swim. So here's the lesson, young bloods. You sit up here in the sun, complaining about the rain. You complain about the mud on your boots. When I was 24, I learned that life hangs by a thread, or a breath, or a grip on a leather belt. Don't you ever take this air for granted. Don't you ever take the ground under your feet for granted. And never ever leave a brother behind in the dark. Now, ... help me up. My knee is locking up again, and I think I'll have another cup of that coffee. Black, like the water.